Good evening, boys and girls. So, how are you, students? I hope your preparation is going well and you have started studying from your modules. So, students, today we shall be starting a new chapter. We shall be gaining an understanding of this chapter, that is chapter number 6, Audit Documentation. This chapter on audit documentation is based upon Essay 230. So remember the name of essay. It is numbered as 230 and it is known as audit documentation. Okay. So while we were going through last few chapters, students, we had read, we had studied that everywhere there is reference to some documentation. Like while studying essay 320, uh, there was reference to documenting materiality. Similarly, in essay 315, we had read about how to document risks. That risk of material misstatement has to be documented, and understanding gained by the auditor in respect of each component of internal control has to be documented. So there are references to audit documentation in many standards on auditing. Besides this, there is a separate standard, there is a separate essay which is called as audit documentation, and number of this essay is essay 230. Okay. So students, first of all, tell me what is documentation all about? When we say document it, that something has to be documented, what does it mean? Yes, Priyanka, Malapa. What does it mean when we say something has to be documented? What basically does it mean? Yes, you can send your answers on BOS mails. Yes, guys, very simple, plain common sense. What does it mean? When we say something has to be documented, what is the meaning of it? What it is trying to convey? No, Malappa, not books of accounts. Where I am asking you, when I say that something, some information has to be documented, what is the meaning of it? Just give me answer of this. When I say that some information is required to be documented, what is the meaning of it? Yes. Rohani, Pratima, you are right. You are saying documented implies that it needs to be recorded. Yes, to file something in written form. So documentation means to put something into writing. So this is the literal meaning of the word documentation. So you have to be very clear in your mind what is the meaning of documentation. Now we come to audit documentation. Now what is audit documentation? Since documentation means recording something, so all the things, most of the things the auditor is doing during the course of audit, so these need to be recorded, these need to be documented, like what procedures auditor performed? What what evidence did he obtain during the course of audit? And which conclusion he reached? So we already know that during the course of audit, an auditor performs various procedures. Like he would be inspecting, he would be going through books of account. That means he is inspecting, or he is observing some process, or he is simply observing somebody doing some work, or he is inquiring, or he has sent written inquiries, he has sent confirmation requests. So these are all examples of audit procedures. And what does the auditor obtain by performing audit procedures? Yes, quickly guys, just refreshen up your knowledge. What does auditor get by performing audit procedures? Yes, guys, open up your minds. When an auditor performs audit procedures, what does he get in language of auditing? Yes, guys. Yes, Rohani, Arati, Priyanka, Krish. When an auditor performs audit procedures, what does he get? Yes, audit evidence, Rohani. No, Pratima, how you are saying audit report? You are missing the things in between. When an auditor performs audit procedures, first of all, he gets audit evidence. It is on the basis of audit evidence, it is by judging that audit evidence, then he forms his conclusions. And on the basis of those conclusions, his opinion is based, which is given in, which is expressed through the audit report. And Priyanka, and how you are writing, he gets audit report. Now, auditor is not getting audit report. He is expressing opinion in the audit report for use by users of financial statement. So guys, unless you understand these basic things, unless you make a sequence in your mind how this process runs, then you would always be confused. So just remember simple things, that during course of audit, auditor performs audit procedures. You already know what audit procedures are. And by performing audit procedures, auditor obtains audit evidence. Okay. And on the basis of audit evidence, the auditor forms conclusions. And it is on the basis of conclusions, his opinion is formed, which is finally expressed through the medium of audit report. Is it clear? So guys, you should not fumble, you should not falter at this aspect. This should be crystal clear to you. Okay. So whatever audit procedures auditor performed during the course of audit, and whatever relevant audit evidence he obtained during the course of audit, and conclusions reached by him on the basis of audit evidence, these are all put into writing. These are documented. So we say that what is audit documentation? So we say that audit documentation is a record of what? It is a record of three things: of audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and conclusions reached by the auditor. So always remember that audit documentation is a record of these things. Audit documentation is a record of these things. It is a record of audit procedures performed, audit evidence obtained, and conclusions reached. Fine. So this is the definition of audit documentation as provided for in Essay 230. Now tell me, students, can you think of some advantages of audit documentation? Now just think these advantages, just think these objectives of audit documentation with an open mind. Yes. Do not see from your module, guys. Just think with plain common sense. Yes. Just think with plain common sense. What could be possible benefits? What could be the advantages of audit documentation? What are the objectives of audit documentation? You can think it by yourself. And whatever you would think logically, I can assure you that when you would see it from your module, you would find same things written there. So I have already explained to you the meaning, the concept of audit documentation. Now try to think over, try to imagine its objectives and advantages. Yes, Pratima, it is basis of evidence that audit is done as per essays. Yes, that is the foremost objective. Well done, Pratima. Priyanka is referring these documentation when in litigation. Yes, if some legal problem arises, then auditor can refer to the audit documentation. It would come to his rescue. It may provide as a proof in future. Yes, Rohani, it is also correct. Arati, you are saying decision making on opinion para. Yes, obviously, it would help in making decisions. It would help in forming opinion. Priyanka is also writing documentation helps in comparison. Comparison of what, Priyanka? What you intend to convey? Yes, Krish, you are also writing correctly. So guys, if you see from your module, these are the objectives. Some of these are the objectives and advantages, benefits, which you are saying. I presume that you are saying it from your own thinking, from your own thought process. So you are saying it correctly. So students, this has to be the manner of studying also. So when you understand something, try to visualize it, try to understand it, and then you would see your logical thought process would lead to same conclusion, will lead to same things which are stated in your module. So remember students, the foremost objective of audit documentation is that it shows, it is the evidence, it shows that audit was planned and performed in accordance with standards on auditing. Okay, because in absence of audit documentation, how one can prove, say if I have audited financial statements of a company and say I do not maintain audit documentation, so how I will be able to prove that I have carried out this work? How I will be able to prove that I have taken I have verified these samples if I do not keep any record of those samples? Clear? So students, and audit documentation acts as a reference for future audits. It improves audit quality also. It enhances audit quality. Because if you do everything in accordance with standards on auditing, and keep a record of all those things in writing, then obviously your quality improves. You are able to correlate the things. You All the documented information is available to you in a ready manner, is available in a handy form. So that is the importance of audit documentation. And it also helps students in, say, inspections or reviews. Say you would read these things in your CA final. Say some there is some regulatory action, some authority has called for some information, or say ICAI has called for some information. So if you do not have record pertaining to that audit, so how you are going to put your point of view, how you would be able to defend yourself? So that is the importance of audit documentation. So remember students, that audit documentation is very important. Yes, clear guys? And students, there is a term audit file. In this essay, there is a term used, audit file. Now, what is the meaning of audit file? So just convey to me through mail, what do you imagine, what is an audit file? So visualize it. What could be the meaning of audit file? Yes, anyone? What could be the meaning of audit file? Just whatever comes to your mind logically, just write that. Again, students, do not see from your module, because if you write something by seeing from module, then I would know that you are writing from your module. Yes, Priyanka, sequence of filing information. Okay, somewhere somewhat relevant. And Yashwani, you are saying where the audit document papers and others are maintained. Yes, yes. Krish, the file including all the documentation related to audit. Yes, that is perfect. So audit file is just a folder or a file where all the documentation relating to a particular engagement is maintained. Now, it can be a physical folder also, or it can be an electronic file also. So clear, students? And remember that audit file relates to a particular engagement. So it relates to a particular audit for a particular period. Yes, guys, is it clear to you? So we understand what is the meaning of audit file. Now, students, another thing comes to our mind while studying audit documentation is that what should be the form, content, and extent of audit documentation. So what does this mean? Form, content means what is included in it, and extent how much, in what shape, what content, and extent means how much of audit documentation should be there. So in accordance with essay 230, students, audit documentation should be such so that any experienced auditor who is not who who is not connected with a particular audit engagement, he can understand that how the auditor performed the procedures and how did he arrive at the conclusions, how he obtained the audit evidence. So file should be speaking. So file should be speaking. So it should be maintained in such a manner that it tells, it speaks everything. It gives a logical flow of information of everything, of audit procedures performed, of the nature, extent, and timing of audit procedures, who performed a particular procedure. Say if somebody has somebody in the engagement team has attended the physical inventory count process of the company, then who attended physical inventory count? Which member of the engagement team attended physical inventory count? And when did he attend? So date is also very important. Okay. So, or says some team member has verified invoices of purchases, then of a sample selected by the engagement team, then who carried out that work, on what dates he carried out that work, and what were the conclusions reached. So this is meant by form, content, and extent of audit documentation. So it should be clear. It should show all the aspects in a proper manner which have been performed by the engagement team during the course of audit. So essay 230 states that audit documentation should be such that an experienced auditor who is not connected with the engagement, he can understand the procedures performed by the auditor and the audit evidence obtained by him and how he reached conclusions on the basis of audit evidence. Okay. So students, now I am using one term here, experienced auditor. I am using one term here, experienced auditor. Now tell me, can you imagine who is an experienced auditor? Now this term is defined in SA 230. It may not be in your module, but still we shall try to understand what does the term experienced auditor mean. Yes, any idea, students? Yes, anyone who can tell what is the meaning of experienced auditor? Yes, Pratima, one who has been working in this field for years. Yes, that's right. So students, just look at it. Just look at the beauty of it. Now, you are writing this from your own understanding, and what you are writing is substantially correct. Okay. So Rohani is saying an auditor who has performed many successful audits. Okay, that is slightly off the mark, Rohani. So experienced auditor means an auditor who is working from years, Priyanka, yes. So experienced auditor, students, simply is an auditor who has practical understanding of the audit process. He is well versed with standards on auditing. He is well versed with the applicable financial reporting framework. So such a person is an experienced auditor, what we in auditing call call as an experienced auditor. So the point is that audit documentation should be such that by seeing that audit documentation, an experienced auditor can understand that how audit was conducted and how the auditor reached the conclusions on the basis of which he expressed his opinion. Yes. Clear to you guys? So students, like like an auditor during the course of audit sends external confirmation requests. He receives a response. He keeps it in the file. So it is part of audit documentation. Okay. So confirmation request sent and response received, both are part of audit documentation. Similarly, you as an auditor are inquiring from the management or say CFO from the company on some matter. You have sent a mail. This is again part of audit documentation. Audit program which is given to the engagement team members for performing audit work, it is also part of audit documentation. Why? Because it shows what work has been performed and who has performed the work on which date, and uh, all such things. Okay. So these all are examples of audit documentation. Another example could be, say, during the course of audit, an engagement team member has attended physical inventory count. So whatever observation um, he has noticed during the physical inventory count, like he must have um, test checked the inventories. So what did he find there? So all these things are all these things are documented on a paper, on a piece of paper. So this is audit documentation. So all these things are audit documentation. Yes, students, is it clear to you? Meaning of audit documentation, what it is all about? Is it clear to you? And what is the form, content, and extent of audit documentation? Yes. Is it clear, students? Yes. So, tell me, students, how audit documentation should be maintained? Like say, my question to you is, should it be maintained as the audit progresses, or it should be done after audit has been completed? Now let us see. Yes, quick answer, students. Yes, tell me. Should it be done as the audit progresses, or should it be done after the audit work is over and the auditor is say yet to give opinion? Yes, yes, students. Just think from your plain common sense. Yes, Rohani is saying as the audit progresses. Pratima is and Krish are also on the same page. And Priyanka is saying after completion. Why, Priyanka? What is your reason? Why you are saying that audit documentation uh, should be done after completion of audit? Yes, Krish, you are right. Krish is saying if it is done afterwards, then it might give inaccurate information. Okay. So like take the example of attendance at physical inventory count. So if you do not document your observations during the attendance at physical inventory count, would it be possible for you students uh, to recall that information after say a period of 10-15 days? Can you recall which items you checked, how many boxes were there, or how many bags were there, and who were the persons who were carrying out uh, physical count process, their names, date? Would you be remember all these things? Would you be able to remember all these things after say 10-15 days? No, no. Here, Priyanka, you have to understand that audit documentation has to be maintained as the audit progresses. Due to these very reasons which I have explained to you. Because documentation made afterwards is likely to give inaccurate details. So if you are doing something and you immediately write it down, then it is more likely that you are writing the correct things. Yes, yes, Shambhavi, you are also right. So Priyanka, have you understood the point? So this is very important, students. Many times questions have come on this aspect. MCQ might come where they would try to confuse you. Okay. So this has to be clear to you. It is very simple. So audit documentation has to be prepared in a timely manner as the audit progresses. And there is one more term, students, assembly of audit file. Assembling of audit file. Now, what does this mean? This simply means that you have conducted the audit, you have prepared the audit documentation, you have even issued the audit report also. You have arrived at the conclusions and you have issued at the audit report also. Now, assembling means arranging papers. It is an administrative work. It is an administrative work. Like some papers are not filed properly, or some irrelevant information is there, or say some information which was preliminary in nature and which has been superseded later on, that information needs to be removed from the audit file. Or say some papers, some checklists, some questionnaires, these have been unsigned. These are unsigned. So this is known as process of assembling of audit file. Okay. So SA 230 says that this process, assembling of audit file, it can be done within 60 days of auditor's report. Within 60 days of auditor's report. And in case of group audit, from the date of group auditor's report. Clear? So assembling can be, there is a period given of 60 days after auditor's report, where final assembling of audit file can be done. Where final assembling of audit file can be done. So like I have told you that it is an administrative process. Here you are not creating fresh audit documentation, because all documentation was maintained by you during the course of audit before making conclusions, or up to the stage of making conclusions and issuing the audit report. However, afterwards, some arranging is required. Some papers need to be cross-referenced. Some numbering is missing. Some papers are unsigned, or some information which is now not more relevant, which is now no more relevant, it has to be discarded. Some irrelevant paper is lying in your file, so you have to complete it. So this is known as assembling of final assembling of audit file. So the time period prescribed is 60 days from the date of auditor's report. Clear, students? And this audit file has to be retained, this has to be maintained, these has to be kept by the auditor for a period of 7 years. So clear, students? So auditor has to keep a record in the form of audit documentation of what procedures he performed, what evidence he obtained, and which conclusions he reached. And these things are collectively kept in a file, which we call as audit file, which can be a physical file or an electronic file, and it has to be retained for a period of 7 years. So if say some regulator requires it at later stage, that how you express your opinion, that they have some questions, or there is some proceeding against a company in which the auditor is asked about how he arrived at this conclusion. Okay, so then audit file comes handy, and auditor would have to share the audit file with the regulator. The regulator might call the copy of the audit file. So you can understand, students, how important it is for an auditor to maintain audit file in a proper form. Yes, students, is it clear to you? So now let us also go to your module. So it is a fairly small chapter, just running into, I think, 20-25 pages, and very easy to understand. And one question of 4 marks or 3 marks would come definitely from this chapter. So if you are clear, the numbers are bonus. So if you are clear about the concept, the numbers are bonus, students. These are free numbers. Any question which comes from this chapter, these are just free numbers. No difficult terms are there in this chapter. Content is very small, content is short, but yet one question would definitely come, whether it would be of 4 marks or 3 marks, or it could be asked in case studies also. So audit documentation is a record of, and another thing, students, another term for audit documentation is audit working papers or audit work papers. So what are audit working papers? This is in fact audit documentation. And students, whose property is the audit documentation, is audit working papers? Yes, think of it. Who owns audit working papers? Whose property is audit working papers? Like, I have performed the audit of a company and I have maintained audit documentation, okay, in an audit file. So whose property is it? Yes, students. Just very simple, plain common sense. Whose property is it? Yes. Yes, guys. Auditors, yes. Auditors' property. Everyone is saying correctly. So these are auditors' property. This is not client's property or company's property. Now, however, if the client requires it, the auditor can show these working papers to the client, provided it does not affect his independence or the validity of the work performed by him. So it should not in any way sharing audit working papers should not in any way affect independence of the auditor or validity of work performed by him. So in those circumstances, the auditor can share if he thinks so. So students, audit documentation is a record of these things. So objective of auditor as per SA 230 is that it provides sufficient and appropriate record of basis for the auditor's report and evidence that audit was planned and performed in accordance with essays and applicable legal and regulatory requirements. Okay. And the nature of audit documentation includes this we have already done. Purpose of audit documentation we have already discussed. Form, content and extent of audit documentation also we have discussed. So again students, the form, content and extent of audit documentation also depends upon these factors like size and complexity of audit, like the nature of audit procedures to be performed. So like which audit procedures auditor performed, accordingly he would maintain audit documentation, or how large an entity is. So audit working papers, audit documentation would be commensurate with that. And significance of audit evidence obtained, which tools the auditor used, what methods auditor employed. Say the auditor employed some methods for selection of samples. Okay. So all these things. So these are examples of audit documentation: audit program, analysis, external confirmation requests, summary of significant matters, or correspondence. So timely preparation of audit documentation. Timely preparation of audit documentation. This we have done. Audit file, simple definition is there. Assembly of final audit file is also taken care of. And students, this requirement of 60 days, it is provided in SQC 1. This you would be reading in later in your chapter 11, Standard on Quality Control. So documentation of significant matters and related significant professional judgments. So all the matters which are important, which are significant, which arose during the course of engagement, these have to be documented, because these significant matters have a bearing on the conclusions, and these significant matters, these conclusions have a bearing on the opinion. Okay. There is another term, students, completion memorandum or audit documentation summary. So it is nothing, students, but a summary of significant matters and how they were addressed. So what were the significant important matters addressed during identified during the course of audit, and how auditors addressed those matters, which procedures they performed in respect of those matters. So these are called significant uh, audit matters. Like say, if I have identified some fraud risk, so it would be my duty to state in the audit documentation how I address that risk. Ultimately, it might I may not have found something, but since I have identified a significant matter, so I would state that how I addressed that matter. Okay, or there is some matter pertaining to say interpretation of some accounting standard. Then how I address that matter, what was the management's point of view, and what was my point of view as an auditor, and how I reached a conclusion that the accounting policy followed by the management is proper or not. Okay, so ownership of audit documentation also we have considered before. Yes, now Krish and Unni Krishnan, you are asking to share a practical example for the situation where sharing audit documentation to clients affect independence of the auditor. Yes, so you can think it in that way, Krish and Unni Krishnan. Say you share some part of your working papers with your client, and and the and the client is using it in such a manner that it results in some threats to your independence. Okay, the the client may use it in such a manner that it would endanger your independence by enhancing such threats. Okay, so so that is the way you have to understand. Yes. So see question number one, students, test your understanding one. During the course of audit of a company, an issue arose relating to treatment of interest costs of company on its restructured loans taken from a bank. This important matter was discussed with CFO and was properly resolved. Is it necessary for the auditor to include in its working papers? Do not see the answers. Yes, Pratima is saying, yes, it is necessary. Why? Also give reason, Pratima, why it is necessary. Yes, guys, also write one line about the reason why it could be the necessary. Restructure, students, you understand now, when somebody has taken loan from a bank and the loan is not repaid on time, and the bank, and there is genuine business reason, so the bank restructures the term. Okay, it would say like, look, earlier we had asked you to repay the loan in say 5 years. Now you can repay it in 7 years. So such type of things. Yes, and Unni Krishna, you are saying not necessary client done correction before completion of audit. Yes. Any other opinion? So guys, you see this thing, and you can understand that the client has restructured the loan, and there is an issue pertaining to accounting treatment of interest cost, like how interest cost is to be recognized. So although the matter was resolved, but still it is a significant matter. So all significant interest is going to be a important cost in important head in statement of profit and loss. And obviously it may be material. So it is going to affect profits if the interest cost is not accounted for properly. So although the matter has been resolved, but the point is you have to state it in documentation that how this that the that how, that I discussed this matter with say CFO of the company, and this was their point of view, and we agreed on these things. So it would be a record of significant matters, that a significant matter arose during the course of audit and how it was resolved. It is also kept part of audit documentation. It is not in respect of trivial matters or trivial matters or petty matters, important matters. Okay, important, significant matters. Yes, test your understanding too. Yes, students, just see this. Test your understanding too. Why you are able to read the question, students? Students, as I have told you, whatever questions you are going to get from this chapter, just these are free marks with very little effort. You can complete this. You can complete this chapter in one day, and you can simply become master of this chapter in a single day, and you can secure your 4 marks. And while doing this chapter, students, do try to remember, like you do try to remember the definition of audit documentation. Do try to remember what does completion memorandum means. Okay. Yes. Now, what are the issues involved in the context of audit documentation? So you have understood the situation. So tell me what are the issues involved in this situation which is given here. Identify the issues. Now, Pratibha, you are saying audit documentation should be kept for 7 years. So this is not the issue. This is not the issue, Pratibha. What is the issue in this situation? Yes. What is the issue in this situation? Yes, Krish, you are right. She has to assemble the audit file within 60 days of the auditor report, and it has not been followed by her. So when regulators letter came, she hurriedly assembled the audit file. So during the process, what happened? She put some dates, current dates. So when letter of the regulator came, she is putting current dates on the on some papers. So this student happens. This happens. Okay. So Krish, yes, you have identified the issue correctly. Yes, Krish. And another mistake was adding new paper which is not permitted. Yes. Once you have assembled the audit file, you cannot delete, discard, or modify the information unless in very special circumstances. And in those circumstances, also, you have to write why you are doing it, who has prompted you to do it, what are the circumstances. Yes, Krish, your answer is perfectly right. And any student, any other student? No, Priyanka, you are saying not preparing audit documents. No, this is not the answer way to answer, Priyanka. Where it is written that she has not prepared the audit documents. It is written in the question that audit working papers, including record of discussions, detail of audit procedures performed, these in fact have been documented because the question uses audit working papers. And it is clearly written that these have not been properly assembled. So the question is about assembling of the audit file. So more than 6 months have elapsed after issue of audit report. So it should give you a hint. It should give a clue to you that question itself is saying that 6 months have passed. In fact, a same question on the similar lines has come in the CA intermediate exams held in May 24. Compulsory question, I think, of 3 marks or 4 marks. It is there. Subsequently, she has received a letter from regulator in connection with the audit of company, requesting her to share copy of audit file. The letter has woken up her from deep slumber. She hurriedly assembled audit file and inserted some more papers which were necessary. This is not allowed. This is against the requirements of SA 230. So, however, she put current date on these inserted papers. Again, this is wrong. This is not proper. This violates requirements of SA 230. And copy of audit file was sent to regulator. So when you would send such a audit file to the regulator is going to munch you. So regulator would penalize you, and he can also take any other regulatory action, and he can say that audit was we do not agree with your contention that you had properly planned and performed the audit. He would say that audit has not been planned and performed in accordance with standards on auditing because you have failed to keep proper audit documentation. You have changed audit documentation. You have violated the sanctity of audit working papers. Yes, clear, students. Now let us quickly do some MCQs. Very simple MCQs. Yes, which of the following statements is likely to false? Likely to be false. Which of the following statements is likely to be false? Now, while answering, do write question number also. Which of the following statements is likely to be false? Only Ruhani and Pratima have given answers. Yes, what about others? Yes, correct. Everyone, correct. So answer is B. Audit documentation is prepared after audit is completed. This is false. Audit documentation is to be prepared in a timely manner as the audit progresses. So only final assembly of audit file is done issue of auditor's report within a period of 60 days. So this important distinction you have always to remember, because in exams they would try to confuse you on this aspect. Yes. Again, very simple question. Assembly of audit file should be completed. Question number 2. Yes. We are just discussing this, guys. Right now we have discussed it. Yes, everyone is right. So D, within 60 days of auditor's report. Yes. Now number 3. Who is owner of audit documentation? Yes. Who is owner of audit documentation? Yes, C. Perfectly right. Fourth, which of following is not a purpose of audit documentation? Which of following is not a purpose of audit documentation? Yes, only Ruhani has answered. Yes, question number 4. Which of following is not a purpose of audit documentation? Yes, answer is C. All of you are writing correctly. Assisting management. Management has nothing to do with the audit documentation, because audit documentation has to be prepared and maintained by the auditor. So how it would help management in uh, taking timely decisions? So fairly simple, guys. So students, in our chapter 4, we had left one essay 610, essay 610. So since it is a short chapter, so I am taking liberty to to so that we can study essay 610 today itself. Okay. Essay 610. The name of essay is Using Work of Internal Auditor. It is there in your chapter 4. So students, you have heard this name internal audit, internal auditor. What is the difference between internal auditor and external auditor? Yes. Can you tell students? Have you read about internal audit under your company's act, under company law? Yes, Krish, tell what is the difference between the scope of work performed by internal auditor and external auditor? Yes, guys, anyone? Yes, Priyanka, internal auditor is doing regularly. Okay, that's right. Internal auditor is full-time auditor, external one is not full-time. Okay, from your common sense point of view, it is okay. But I want to ask from you a pertinent question that both are auditors. So, internal auditor is also performing same audit procedures which an external auditor is performing. But what is the difference in scope of their work? Internal auditor uh, also does many of the things that an external auditor does. The nature of audit procedures is quite similar. Yes, Rohani, your your answer is perfect. So internal auditor looks into, it helps, he helps in the internal processes of the company. Like he contributes to improving um, internal control system. Now he assesses the internal control systems and gives his suggestions. He helps in a better governance system within the company, within the entity. He also reviews compliance with laws and regulations which the entity is making, which the entity is complying. But the important difference, students, which you can understand between internal auditor and external auditor is that internal auditor does not express opinion on financial statements. Internal auditor does not express opinion on financial statements. Now, this falls exclusively in the domain of external auditor, in the domain of statutory auditor. This was the precise objective of the external auditor as per SA 200, that he has to express opinion on whether financial statements are free from material misstatements due to fraud or error, and he has to give opinion on the basis of his findings in the form of audit report. Okay. So, and Rouhani, internal auditor, it is not necessary that internal auditor is always an employee of the company. He may be employee of the company, he may not be employee of the company. Okay, like say if there is a firm of chartered accountants and they are rendering internal audit services to a company, so they are not employees of the company, but they are rendering internal audit services to the company. So their employees go there and conduct internal audit. So therefore, it is important to learn that internal auditor may be an employee or may not be an employee of the company. Yes. And where are the provisions pertaining to internal audit contained in Companies Law 2013, Companies Act 2013? So quickly, let us refreshen up your knowledge of Companies Act 2013. Yes. Can you tell me the section, students? Can you recall the law provision uh, which contains requirements of internal audit in context of a company? If you can genuinely recall, then students give your answer in the mail. Yes, Priyanka, you are right. Yes, can you recall the law provision on internal audit which you have read in your company law classes? No, no, Priyanka, it is not section 144. Yes, it is section 138. Rohani is right. So it contains provision relating to internal audit. Like an internal audit, it is not necessary that internal auditor should be a chartered accountant. He can be a chartered accountant or a cost accountant or any other professional as may be decided by the board. And he may be employee of the company, he may not be employee of the company. No, Krish, it is not necessary. If you write section number properly, then write. Otherwise, do not write. It is not going to impact adversely. However, if you write incorrect section number, then it may impact you adversely. Okay. So, so students, this was just to refreshen up your knowledge of internal auditor. And one more thing, Priyanka, you have to understand that when we say, you are saying that internal auditor is not an independent as external auditor. In a sense, it is true. And in a sense, it is false also. Internal auditor has also to maintain his independence, but the nature of his independence is different from external auditor. Like his nature of independence is that he should report to some higher echelons within the company, like like to the audit committee, so that whatever he is reporting, it carries weight. His findings, his recommendations are duly acted upon. So the nature of independence of external auditor and internal auditor is different. So internal auditor is not doesn't enjoy independence in the sense an external auditor enjoys. But it would also be wrong to say that there is no independence to internal auditor. Okay. So students, if you find during the course of audit of a company that there is an internal audit department within the company, so you as a statutory auditor, you as an external auditor, you say why not use some work performed by internal auditor? Why not rely upon work of internal auditor? Obviously, internal auditor is also a professional, and he performs his work by doing procedures which are similar to in the nature performed by external auditor or statutory auditor. So obvious question would be, how external auditor can use work of internal auditor. How external auditor can use work of internal auditor. So SA 610 students precisely deals with this aspect. When the external auditor is considering to use the work of internal auditor, then SA 610 comes into the picture. Then SA 610 comes into the play. So how an external auditor can use work of internal auditor? In what ways external auditor can use the work of internal auditor? So he can use the work in these ways. Number one, in identifying risk of material misstatement. By going through internal audit work or say reports, and by taking direct assistance. So by seeing the internal audit function, I can very well form an opinion whether I want to use work of internal auditor or not. So first thing you have to remember is that it is not necessary for me as an external auditor, for me as a statutory auditor, to use work of internal auditor. It depends upon my judgment. So first of all, what things I have to keep in mind for using work of internal auditor? First thing is objectivity. That whether the the manner in which internal auditor is performing his work is objective, is impartial to whom he is reporting. Like I had given you example of if the internal auditor is reporting to audit committee, then it means it is okay. He is reporting to highest oversight body in the company pertaining to financial matters. But say if the internal audit function, if the internal audit department in a company is reporting to some low official or is reporting to say CFO of the company, who is responsible for managing the finance function, then can he would this be called as objective? No. Okay. And see, students, there are two ways in which external auditor can use the work of internal auditor. Number one, he can go through his report and rely upon the reports and say that some of the procedures have been performed by internal auditor. So I would be relying upon those procedures, upon the work done by internal auditor. And another thing is that some procedures would be performed by me, but I would take assistance of internal auditor. He would be performing those procedures, but under my supervision, under my direct supervision. Okay. Yes, students, is it clear to you? So before arriving at a decision whether to use the work of internal auditor, the statutory auditor would have to take decision on his objectivity, on his competence, whether he is a competent person, like what kind of staff he is having. So, like in big companies, there need to be a well-functioning, full-fledged internal audit department. So, whether staff are trained, whether skilled, proper persons are hired or not. So, all these things are related to competence. And third thing, he would see whether he follows a systematic and disciplined approach. Now, how he performs his work, what working papers does he maintain, what records does he maintain. So, auditor would also like to perform a say a test check on the work performed by the internal auditor before placing his reliance. So if I am placing reliance on somebody's work, so I need to be somewhat satisfied that whatever work I am placing reliance upon is in fact reliable. So clear, friends? And second thing is by taking direct assistance. Now, direct assistance means the I take assistance of internal auditor in performing some procedures. He would be doing, he would be performing those procedures under my supervision, under my control, but he would be doing things on my behalf. Why I would be requiring such a thing? Because he is also a professional. He is also a skilled person, and I want to avail his repository of knowledge, his repository of experience. So before taking direct assistance, students, two things you have to remember: that the auditor would have to seek management's consent that look, I am trying to involve your internal auditor in performing in taking his direct assistance in performing certain audit procedures which would be under my control and supervision, which would be under my direction, control and supervision. And he would also have to take an agreement from the internal auditor that what he would maintain confidentiality. that whatever comes to his knowledge, he would maintain the confidentiality. So what are the areas in which external auditor can take direct assistance, and what are the areas in which external auditor should not take direct assistance? So SA 610 states that the areas in which limited judgment is required, in those areas, the external auditor, the statutory auditor can take direct assistance of the internal auditor. However, where more judgment is required, where significant judgment is required, in those areas, the statutory auditor should not take uh, assistance, should not take direct assistance of the internal auditor. Like, like I give you an example. Say suppose the auditor is statutory auditor is performing procedures regarding valuation of trade receivables, whether trade receivables have been valued or not. Okay. Now he can take direct assistance of the internal auditor, say in verifying aging schedule. But whether on the basis of aging schedule, whether the allowance made for bad debts is proper or not, this decision has to be taken by the external auditor. This decision has to be taken by the external auditor. He cannot delegate it to the internal auditor. So the more the judgment is involved, the more significant the judgment is there, that work has to be performed by the external auditor and not internal auditor. So is it clear to you guys? And similar is the case when the auditor uses the work of internal auditor. So areas where say there are significant risks. So in such cases, the auditor should perform procedures directly and should not rely on the work used by the internal auditor. So anyway, guys, internal audit reports provide the statutory auditor a reference, a benchmark to identify material misstatements. It may help in identifying the areas where there could be a risk of potential frauds. He may find contrary information in the internal audit reports and in the statements given by the management. So if he finds some contrary information, if internal auditor is saying something and if management is saying something, then it should alert the external auditor that something is wrong, that something is fishy. Like say, to give you an example, for example, the internal auditor says in his report that that physical verification of PP items is not being conducted, while the management has represented to you that we are conducting the physical verification. They also give you the dates. So obviously, two conflicting facts are there. So obviously, you by following the concept of professional skepticism, you should be alert to the possibility of fraud or possibility of misstatement. Yes. Is it clear to you guys? The brief overview of using work of internal auditors. Yes, Unni Krishnan, your question is not clear. What you are precisely asking? If internal auditor who is in employee of company who is in default, what default? Whether it will attract disciplinary action from ICAI? Yes, students, brief overview of SA 610 is clear to you. Another thing, students, we had left in chapter 4 is one more essay, essay 530, relating to audit sampling. I think, guys, that you have read this topic in chapter 4 in your module essay 530, audit sampling. So you know, guys, that auditor, a statutory auditor, extensively uses sampling. So what do we mean by audit sampling? Yes. Anyone who can tell me what do we mean by audit sampling? Yes, Krish, Rohani, Priyanka, can you tell me what is the meaning of audit sampling? Yes, random data collection. Yes. Shambhavi, example of previous audit? No, 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 no. Audit sampling. Audit sampling is application of audit procedures to less than 100% of population so that all sampling units have a chance of selection. So what basically does it mean? Say if sales of a company, sales of an entity, say, are of 50 crores, and I have decided to use audit sampling while performing my audit. I can use it. It is my judgment. It is my right. I can use it. So I take a sample. So what is the meaning of sample? That I would select some invoices from some entries from this sales of rupees 50 crore in a manner such that all sampling units have a chance of selection, that there is no bias involved. Okay. So like, say I decide to check, say, 10 invoices out of, say, 1,000 invoices. So what I am doing, I am taking a sample. And all these 1,000 invoices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up till 1,000, all these 1,000 invoices are collectively known as population. And these individual invoices are called as sampling units. Clear? Sample, like you can correlate it to practical situations, like say governments also take samples, like like pollsters also nowadays are making poll predictions on the basis of samples. So they take samples in a proper manner. Okay. So same thing when you perform audit procedures to less than 100% of population, so that all sampling units have a chance of selection. Now this is very important. So whatever way, whatever the manner you select samples, there should not be bias, that these samples should have should have a chance of selection. All sampling units should have a chance of selection. So you can use random number tables, you can use random number generators to select the samples. Okay. So meaning of population and meaning of sampling units is clear to you, and meaning of audit sampling is also clear to you, students. And another term in audit sampling is so students remember chapter 3. In chapter 3 we had read about detection risk. Remember? It was a risk that the planned procedures by the auditor will not be able to detect a material misstatement. Remember chapter 3, audit risk and internal control. Now we had also read in chapter 3 that detection risk comprises of two parts. One is sampling risk and another is non-sampling risk. Now what was sampling risk? Sampling risk was a risk that the sample is not representative of the population. Okay, so that risk would always be there. Like pollsters who are making prediction of the outcome of the polls, they are also stating that there is so much sampling risk. Okay, the sample which they have collected, which they have obtained, may not be representative of the whole of the population. Yes, Sumit, population means the all the items which you are checking. Like say I had given you example of sales. Similarly, you can take example of purchases. Say if you are taking a sample from purchases, and there are say 5,000 invoices of purchases, and you have selected 50 purchase invoices for checking. So total 5,000 invoices are population, and each one of the invoice from 1 to 5,000 is sampling unit. So total 5,000 invoices is population from which I am taking a sample. Yes, Sumit, is it clear? So one is sampling risk and another is non-sampling risk. So non-sampling risk means I have chosen some inappropriate audit procedure, or I have wrongly evaluated my result. So it has nothing to do with the sample. Sample was right, but I performed a wrong procedure. I performed an inappropriate procedure. Okay. So in sampling risk, students, there can be two situations. Say, while performing tests of controls. So I am testing control, say. While performing test of controls, I, on the basis of samples selected, I conclude that controls are more effective than are more effective than actually what they are. So like I have taken a sample for testing controls and I have found nothing wrong in that sample. So I conclude that controls are effective, whereas they are not effective in reality because sample was not representative of the population. Okay, so sampling risk is there. Or while performing tests of details, similarly, I conclude on the basis of sample that there are no misstatements, but whereas actually there are material misstatements. So then how my audit would be impacted? How my audit would be impacted? Yes, students. Say if I am testing controls and I presume that controls are effective, whereas in reality these are not. So how my audit would be affected? Which aspect of my audit would be impacted? Yes, anyone? Yes, Krish, Priyanka, Shambhi, anyone? So obviously, students, look, if I reach to the conclusions that controls are more effective when they are in fact not that effective, or on the basis of test of details, by taking a sample, I have reached a conclusion that there are no material misstatements, but in fact there are material misstatements. So it would impact my audit effectiveness. So audit would be not effective. So audit would be not effective. My opinion may be inappropriate. It would be affect. It would be. I would be expressing an inappropriate opinion. But say assume if on the basis of sample selected, I conclude that tests of controls are less effective. I conclude that controls are less effective, whereas actually they are effective. And similarly, in case of while performing tests of details, I conclude that there are misstatements, but actually there are no misstatements. I conclude that there are material misstatements, but actually there are not so. So, which aspect of audit is impacted? Yes, anyone? How it would impact my audit? If I presume that, if I conclude that controls are less effective, whereas actually they are effective. Actually, the system is running smoothly, but on the basis of samples, I conclude that controls are not effective. So how my audit would be impacted? Yes. Anyone? Yes, Krish, Sumit, Arati, Shambhi, Priyanka. So guys, very simple. No, no, no. Here there is no question of opinion, Krish. Say the company has laid down some procedure and I am testing that procedure. And by testing, I wrongly conclude that controls are less effective, but actually they are effective. Actually, they are effective. So, which aspect of my audit would be impacted? I want answer from you, students, so that it is established in your mind. Yes, Krish, come on. Now, this is the reverse case. In the last case, we had learned opposite of it, where the auditor would give inappropriate opinion, his audit effectiveness would be impacted. Now, what would happen in this case? Guys, very simple. It is very simple. Yes, Priyanka, Krish, come on. Yes, guys, I am yearning for your answer. Yes, none. So, students, this would impact audit efficiency. Yes, Krish, you are correct. In a way, you are correct. Yes, you have written correctly. So you have to think in this way. So the technical term is audit efficiency. He will check more data than required. He would, he would have to increase his area of work unnecessarily because everything is working fine, but he concludes wrongly that everything is not working fine, that everything is not that effective. So it would impact his audit efficiency. He would be doing more work for nothing. He would be performing certain procedures again and again, which may not be required. He may be increasing his size of sample, whereas it was not required at the first place. So it would impact audit efficiency. Okay. So these two things you have to remember, students, in the context of sampling risk. And another thing in sampling is, students, there are two things. There are two terms. Number one is tolerable rate of deviation. And another thing is tolerable misstatement. What is the difference between two? Yes, do you know, guys? So I am giving you a clue. Always remember that sampling can be used while performing tests of controls as well as while performing tests of details. So in both cases, sampling can be used while performing tests of controls also and while performing tests of details also. Yes. Yes, guys, can you tell? I've given you the clue. What is the difference between tolerable rate of deviation and tolerable misstatement? Yes, Krish, Sumit, Arati, Arti, Priyanka, no one. Probably, guys, you have, I think, you have not completely read chapter 4. So, tolerable rate of deviation is, this term is used while performing tests of controls. Like, and tolerable misstatement is used while performing tests of details. So like, say I am performing tests of controls. I am checking controls. Say I am checking a control that, say, the wage sheets are signed by wages sheets are signed by a responsible official. Okay. And say I have set a goal that if out of, say, 100, if one if signatures are missing on one sheet, then it is okay. Okay. So it may be due to clerical error, it may be due to oversight. So what I have said, now I have set a tolerable rate of deviation. I have set a tolerable rate of deviation. Now what is this tolerable rate? It is 1%. 1 out of 100. I have set a tolerable rate of deviation at 1%. And if on actual verification, I find that out of 100, 10 sheets, on 10 sheets, there are no signatures. So this is called as actual rate of deviation. This is called actual rate. So my actual rate is more than the tolerable limit, which was set by me. So obviously, I would conclude that controls are not working effectively. So 1% was set by me, that deviations within the range are tolerable. Now, if deviations increase beyond this range, then these are not tolerable. Okay. And similarly, tolerable misstatements. Now, when we talk about tolerable misstatement, it means it is always a monetary amount. It is always set as a monetary amount. Okay, like say while checking purchases, I set a tolerable misstatement of say rupees 1 lakh. So I would be setting it in a monetary amount. Say, and if the misstatement exceed the tolerable amount, then obviously I would be increasing my sample size. So if there are misstatements in a sample and I project it to the whole of population, and these misstatements are greater than the tolerable misstatement, then obviously I would have to increase my area of checking. So always remember that tolerable misstatement is a monetary amount, and it is used in the context of tests of details, whereas tolerable rate of deviation is used in the context of tests of controls. Clear, students? And so while selecting a sample, the auditor may use statistical approach or non-statistical approach. Okay, so in statistical approach, all the units have a chance of selection, no bias is there, and also the sampling risk is measured using probability theory, using method of statistics. Okay, and auditor can use non-statistical approach also, using which doesn't have these characteristics, but it should be without any bias. It should be without any bias. It should be there should be there shouldn't be any preference for a particular item for selection. Okay, so I have also uploaded important notes of SA 530 um, during chapter 4. Okay, when we were doing chapter 4, I have uploaded notes in respect of SA 530, which shows important aspects. So you can go through from those notes also. Okay. So now let us do this one small case study of audit documentation, students. Just read this case study which is in your modules. Quickly, guys, read this case study which is in your module. There is an engagement team conducting audit of a company. Following issues arose. A, B, C, D, E, 5 issues are there. It is a very short case study. Yes, you have read it. So question number 1, yes, guys. Read question number 1. What should be the answer? Yes, guys, what should be the answer? 4 parts are there. What should be the answer? I am again scrolling the page. Or if module is open before you guys, you can read it from there also. Yes, what should be the answer to question number 1? Directly related to audit documentation. This we have studied just today. Yes, Krish has given answer. Anybody else? Yes, Krish, you have given the right answer. Congrats. So, what was the question? The question was that auditor is performing some procedures. There are some team members, and in earlier audit program, it was written that some procedures were performed by are to be performed by Mr. X, Y, and Z, whatever the names are there in the case study. But in actual, these were performed by somebody else. Say due to practical considerations, some person was not there at that point of time, or like that. So obviously it can be done. So we have read in chapter 2 that audit program is not cast in stone. It is flexible. So if somebody whose name was written that he would perform that work, actually the work was not performed by that person. So then audit working papers would be suitably updated that okay, this person was not there and this work has been performed by Mr. So and so. Clear? So answer C is the right answer. Many of you have written correctly. Priyanka, Pratima. Okay. So as regards materiality, which of the following statements is most appropriate in context of audit documentation? Now, while studying chapter 3, you had read about materiality and its documentation requirements in accordance with SA 320. So when an auditor documents materiality, so what has to be documented? It is there in your chapter 3. Yes, Rohani, Krish, you are right. So materiality arrived on the basis of professional judgment along with the factors considered in the determination has also to be documented. This is right. Okay. As regards team's assessment that risk of material misstatement is low, which of the following statements is odd one? So in essay 315, we had also studied that risk has to be documented. That risk of material misstatement has to be documented. So which statement is odd one? Now three options are to be documented and one option is odd one. It is an outlier option. Now which option is that in question number 3? Yes, only Ruhani has given answer. What about others? Yes, answer is D, correct. Precise calculation of risk material misstatement has to be documented. This is false statement. We have understood that risk of material misstatement cannot be calculated precisely. It depends upon professional judgment. It can be high, low, medium, but it cannot be calculated precisely. In a number, CA Shobit is responsible for attending physical inventory count. Which of the following is not true? So he is attending physical inventory count. Which of the statements is not true? It means you have to find false. Which of the 4 statements is false? He is attending physical inventory count process. Which of the following statement is not true? It means 3 are okay, 1 is false. Yes, Krish, yes, again you are right. So option D is false. कोई product है, there is some product, and whether it is conforming to quality control standards like ISI or BIS marks. So this normally doesn't fall in the domain of audit documentation. The management has to look at it. How, Priyanka, you are writing A? A is perfectly right. Dates on which physical inventory count was attended should be documented. Who attended the physical inventory count? It may include photograph. It is not necessary, but it may include photographs. The auditor clicks a photograph. It is an evidence that he attended the count. And this was the area where stocks were lying. So it is part of audit evidence. A is perfectly right. Now question number 5. As regards related party transaction, which of the following should not be part of audit documentation? Yes, photograph is required. That is what I'm saying. But it is nowhere written in the essays that it is a must. As regards related party transaction, which of the following should not be part of audit documentation? Should not be part of audit documentation. So related party transaction में what thing we have to take care of? That transactions are done at an arm's length basis. That these are carried out in the same manner as the entity would have transacted with a third party. Okay. So C is the answer. So sorry, D is the answer. Close length, there is no such term close length. So Is it okay, guys? So now we can make it interactive. If any students wants to ask question on Zoom, he can ask. Yes, Ashok ji, अनम्यूट कर दें. हेलो अशोक जी. Yes, any student who wants to ask some question? Yes, students, any one of you, if you are having some query, you can ask on Zoom. Yes, guys, I am waiting. Otherwise, there are still 10-15 minutes left. So we will revise something. If you do not have any query, guys, please send mail that you do not want to ask anything. Just do not waste time. Yes, anyone, students, I'll wait for another minute. Okay, you are saying nobody has queries. So you don't want to ask anything. So I am again asking Ashok ji to mute everybody then. अशोक जी आप सबको म्यूट पे डाल दें. Okay. So students, yes, Avi, what is your question? You are asking, I do not really easily remember the audit. Aho, what you are writing, AHOE. There is no such word. What you are trying to say, you are not, what you are trying to say that you are not able to remember the audit concepts. Yes, Avi, this is what you are precisely asking. Say, Avi, if you are saying that you are not able to remember, then I would request you to go slow, first understand the thing, and then try to learn that concept, the important, the significant part of that concept by trying to learn it twice, thrice, or 4 times, and then continuously try to remember those things. Like say, if you want to learn definition of audit risk, so open the module, read the definition carefully, word by word, devote time. Do not be in hurry that I have to finish this chapter of 100 pages in 2 days. No, this would not happen in this manner. Okay. So like read the definition, audit risk is the risk. So stop, take a take a breath and stop. Remember that audit risk is the risk. It means it is the chance that an auditor expresses inappropriate opinion. It means he is talking about inappropriate opinion when financial statements are materially misstated. So remember all these words, materially misstated, and try to try to establish these things in your mind twice, thrice, and during the day also recall the definition of audit risk 4 or 5 times. When you are eating, when you are walking, then remember the definition of audit risk. Similarly, inherent risk, control risk, detection risk, and then try to correlate the things. And in this way, if you practice in this way, it would ultimately help in establishing the things in your mind. But you have to put the efforts. If you are not able to understand um, by just having a look at the first place, then you have to read twice, thrice, or 4 times, as I am saying. It is a long process and requires effort. Yes, Avi, is it clear to you? Yes, Avi, is it clear to you? Is the strategy clear to you? Okay. So Pratima Upadhyay, you are saying what is the answer writing format for audit? Like in law, we have to write provisions. Yes, same is the case here. You are in audit paper also, Pratima, you are given a situation, and first you have to first you have to identify the issue asked for, correlate with that situation, and then give a conclusion. If you remember essay number and you are sure, reasonably sure that it is correct, then do quote essay number. If you are not sure, then do not quote. Okay, then simply you can write standards on auditing state that. Okay, but if you remember the number correctly, then do write. There's anyone else? Yes, any other query, students? I don't think you have query. So let us test your knowledge. Okay. So tell me, let us revise standards. So we will start with very elementary things. Quickly, students, the moment I speak, you give answers on your mail. Okay. Now, which essay deals with related party transactions? Quickly. Which essay deals with related party transaction? Which standard on auditing deals with related party transactions? Come on, guys, quick, quick. So long time, guys, you are taking to give this simple, in answering this simple question. Only Krish has answered. What about others? So, guys, what you have read till now? Essay 550 is the right answer. अभी तक आपको ऐसे नंबर भी याद नहीं है, इसका मतलब. Now, which essay deals with auditor's responsibilities in initial audit engagements regarding opening balances? Yes, guys. Which essay deals with auditor's responsibilities in initial audit engagements regarding opening balances? Yes, come on, guys, quickly. So anyway, so guys, I think mail is taking time. So I would request Ashok ji to unmute you all. So you can raise your hands there. It would be better. So अशोक जी आप इनको सबको अनम्यूट कर दें जरा एक बार. हेलो. अनम्यूट कर दें. अनम्यूट कर दें सबको. ये स्टूडेंट्स आप बताएं कौन सा इससे डील करता है ऑडिटर की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज के बारे में इनिशियल ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट्स में रिगार्डिंग ओपनिंग बैलेंसेस. यस. एस ए 510. ओके करेक्ट. सो yes, students, those who are on Zoom, can they tell, any one of them can tell whether what is the meaning of initial audit engagement in SA 510? Yes, meaning of initial audit engagement in SA 510. Anyone who is on Zoom, whether you can tell what is the meaning of initial audit engagement as per SA 510? Do not hesitate, students. Come on, raise your hand on Zoom. क्या हो जाएगा? गलत हो जाएगा ना, फिर क्या होगा? यस. इनिशियल ऑडिट एंगेजमेंट का क्या मीनिंग है एसए 510 के हिसाब से? आई वांट टू हियर फ्रॉम यू ऑन जूम. ये स्टूडेंट्स प्लीज रेज योर हैंड. Yes, students, I think you are not interested in answering on Zoom today. I don't know why. Yes, Krish, you are saying where previous year financial statements were not audited by current auditor. Yes, that is the only one part. And another part is that previous year financial statements were not audited. So that would also be containing opening balances. Say we are talking about an entity which was not required to get its accounts audited in last year. Now it is required to get its accounts audited. So opening balances would be there. So initial audit engagement as per SA 510 has these two parts. Remember, Krish? So which standard on auditing deals uh, with the concept of materiality in planning and performing the audit? Yes. Yes, students, which essay deals with concept of materiality in planning and performing audit?
SA 320.
Yes, you are Preeti. Yes, Preeti, well done. So at least, so guys, you have to keep doing this exercise yourself. Remember the names, remember the numbers, and establish these things in your mind. And which essay deals uh, with with the aspects when an auditor wants to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding litigation matters and claims involving the entity.
SA 501.
Yes, SA 501. Yes, that's right, Preeti. And Preeti, my next question is, please stay on the Zoom. SA 501 deals with three aspects. One is this, which you have answered. And what are other two aspects? Yes, Preeti.
Sir, I think
बोलिए बोलिए, कोई बात नहीं, गलत हो जाएगा, उसमें हेजिटेट मत करिए.
regarding presentation and disclosure of segment information,
हाँ बिल्कुल ठीक है. और पहली चीज क्या है?
and other is audit procedures
प्रोसीजर्स ऑफ व्हाट? पहली चीज सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट तो भूल
relating.
गए. फॉर ऑब्टेनिंग
Like,
सफिशिएंट अप्रोप्रिएट ऑडिट एविडेंस रिगार्डिंग एग्जिस्टेंस एंड कंडीशन ऑफ इन्वेंट्री.
yes, sir.
कि उसको इन्वेंट्री में फिजिकल काउंट प्रोसेस को अटेंड करना है और इन्वेंट्री की एग्जिस्टेंस और कंडीशन को वेरीफाई करना है. तो स्टूडेंट्स, आपको मेहनत की बहुत जरूरत है और आपको ये चीजें ऐसे दिमाग में रखनी है, उनको एस्टेब्लिश करना है, बार बार लर्न करना है. ओके, so I think you have got my point. Any student
Yes, sir.
wants to ask something again, or should we close? Yes, guys. If you want to ask something, or should I close the meeting? So I don't think anybody has got some relevant question today. Okay, so guys, so good night to all of you, and thanks for listening this lecture, and do give your feedback. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir.
Okay. Session concluded.